Been enjoying the music there. Good evening and welcome to Paxton Road TV. This is Talking Points. I am Sam Spurs for Life. Talking Points, our weekly show where we talk all things Tottenham. In this week's show, we are talking about recent events that have happened. Has Hitchen been hitched out, and could Levy sell Spurs? We'll touch on both these three topics in just a short while. I'm just going to welcome the panel, but before I do, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, make sure you smash that like button as well. We want everybody watching the channel. If you're watching on live or you're watching on repeat, make sure you hit that like button as soon as possible. Right, let's get into the show. Let's not even do any more debates about yesterday. We've got another game coming up on Sunday, so we could go over old ground, but I'm sure we've done enough of that yesterday. Let's get the banners up. So, Steve Hitchen, let me get the club statement up here, share a little bit of stuff with you guys. So it's a little bit professional in the background. Let us have a look. Okay. Not that one. That's not that professional. Here we go. Steve Hitchen, club statement. We can confirm that technical director, performance director Steve Hitchen has left the club. Steve was a scout of the club from 2005 to 2010 before returning in 2017. We thank him for his work over the years and wish him well for the future. That was Wednesday, 2nd of February, via the Tottenham Hotspur website. Easy question, I think, and I'll start off with you, Sid. Do you think he was forced, or do you think he jumped? Do you think he got out, or he was maybe shown the door? What's your thoughts?
What did he scout anyway from 2005 to 10?
Do you want to look at the players, Sid? I can tell you the players. He scouted Sergio Aurier, Matt Doherty, Sanchez,
Foyth. Not in 2005.
No, this is some of the players that he scouted whilst at Tottenham.
Mike's already getting ahead of the show. Go on then. Go on, do it, Mike. Go on, keep reading them out. We'll see if you got the same.
I think I need to mention. I'm going to just go with those four. To be fair, I mean Foyth. I'm using Foyth. I'm not saying Foyth's a bad player. To be fair, but I don't think he was right for the Premier League, and he's. I think he's in a league that suits him. But yes, Sid. So there's those three there.
Yeah,
there's a starter for you. So
something tells me that Hotspur is not too happy with the job of Steve Hitchen somehow. Me thinks. Anyways, start for 10. Yeah. Go on, then, Sid.
So
have you?
I personally think he's at one stint. Then, for whatever reason, I don't know why they brought him back, because he obviously didn't do a good job in the first place, and then they brought him back second time around. And it looks like it's third time unlucky for him this time. But I think he's been told, Paratici, Conte. I think Conte's Paratici, and maybe, I know they're good mates with Daniel Levy, but I think having two of them it's not going to happen, and he's cocked up a lot. So I think he's jumped ship before he actually gets booted out and humiliated. So he's decided to think, you know what, let me just go walk out that door. But he's already got jobs lined up, which is the worst thing about it. It's Everton are knocking, Newcastle are knocking. So
it's paper talk, mate.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying in general. But I personally think he's got something lined up, and he's gone before he gets sacked. And I think they've had a word with him in the ear and said, "Listen, mate, you better go." And I think he's gone. I don't think he's been sacked. I think he's just jumped ship and decided to leave before he gets sacked.
Okay, I think it was a conversation that they've had. I think when did Paratici join? July last year. I think they've given it as much time to see if it could work. You know, I think Spurs have probably been a little bit loyal to Steve Hitchen, because they could have quite easily have said, "See you later, bye bye." Usually, when a manager comes in, all his backroom staff comes in, and all the backroom staff of the old manager goes. They've kind of kept a certain level of people. I know we had a bit of a reshuffle. Ledley King moved around. Ryan Mason's moved around. You know, Hitchen kind of, what was his title? Was it Chief Scout? Was he managing?
Yeah,
I don't know what he was. And then he's kind of like been tagging along on the bench, knocking around. It seems like every time Paratici jumps up, he jumps up. Every time Paratici sits down, he sits down. He was a man who didn't really have much left to do, I don't think. So I think the writing was on the wall from the time Paratici came in, and maybe it was a decision joint between the club and himself, waiting for the right opportunity to come, which it may or may not have done. Sean, do you think he was forced out, or do you think it was a case of he knew that his time was up?
I think we should just take it on face value. I think Paratici and Hitchen have known each other for a long time. They're friends. They are friends. And I think what happened was that as Paratici got his feet under the table, it became clearer and clearer that he was no longer required. He's very much linked to the Pochettino era. And if you think about that, we've only got a few links left with that Pochettino era. In fact, it was Hitchen that was trying to get Pochettino back in the summer. It was only because he speaks to Pochettino on a regular basis that, that there was some early talks to get him out of his contract in PSG and bring him back to the club. And now I would say anyone who harbours that wish for Pochettino to come back, it's not happening. It's never going to happen, because I think Pochettino and Hitchen were very,
there was that
close
closer
indeed.
links? You think because that closer links that there is
very
no way back for?
Indeed, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting, because, like I said, money. We all know that money talks in this game of football. If there's enough money involved, I'm sure that.
I think it's a genuine resignation. He's just said, I'm going to move on. I think he's probably been very loyal to Spurs. He's shown Paratici, the ropes, and we now hear that Paratici is actually scouting in England as well. So, going to matches. So that's that's a good thing, because I don't want his contact book to be full of 0039 numbers all the time. I want a few 0044s.
Dial up Italy. Italy, here we come. Yeah, I agree with you. We need to spread our wings in terms of that. That's one of the things that we'll look at some of the lists of transfers ins and outs of Steve Hitchen. Just before we move on, then, Mike, did it come as a surprise to you that Hitchen departed this month?
No, should have happened. Should have happened months ago. Like you said, we're going to get into the ins and outs of who he's brought in and who he had. Well, yeah, basically who he's brought in, which I've got a list myself. I agree with what Sean says. To be fair, I don't think he was necessarily forced out, but I think once Paratici's come in, it's a signal of the cards are on the writing's on the wall, isn't it? It's not a matter of if, just a matter of when, because he's going to grow frustrated within his role. You've got Paratici and Conte sort of controlling the transfers. The scouting network's probably going to be controlled by Paratici himself, and he's going to have his own people that he wants to bring in to probably do the scouting that Hitchen stroke his team were doing. So for me, it's a natural sort of evolving sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's just naturally evolving, isn't it? When someone new comes in, you come in with the new, out of the old, and I think Hitchen, I think it's been probably long overdue for him at Spurs, and I've packed his bags. He is officially left the club, and yeah, I don't want, and I don't. This is the last thing on this. I don't want to see him back. He's been twice. Once, it should have been once bitten, twice shy. But us doing the Spursy thing, we brought him back. Didn't learn from the first time round when he was chief scout, and yeah, if he wants to go to Everton, good luck to him. If he wants to go to Man United, that can only be seen as a positive for Spurs if we go by the players that he's brought in. So yeah, I don't think he's been forced, but I think it's natural that he probably wants, if he's got that type of role where he's at Tottenham, he probably wants something similar at another club. So yeah, I think it's.
My next question was going to be how successful do we deem his tenure? I don't know if we can. And the reason I've got to play a bit of devil's advocate on it, because, like I said, we were looking at when Paratici came in and was saying, who's calling the shots? Is it Daniel Levy? Is it Steve Hitchen? And we all probably allude to the same fact that, although Steve Hitchen was in the shop as being the chief scout or whatever, I don't think he was the main decision maker when it came to necessarily getting all the transfers in. He might have identified them, but certainly what said can only go by what we've seen historically. Maybe he didn't make those final decisions. If he did, there was some good, there's some not so good points. But I think the fact that, PRTv's now come in, has been given the title managing director of football, something which, kind of suggests he's looking after the football side of things as opposed to all the other side of things and letting Daniel Levy get on with the corporate side of things. I think was a good start from Spurs to show a different type of approach. So I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate and maybe say that he maybe didn't necessarily get the full crack of the whip in terms of, making all the decisions. I'll come to you then, Sean. Do you think it was a successful stint for Steve Hitchen over the 2017 era, 2017 to now?
I'll cover that. I want to have a bit of comeback on Mike, actually, because when he was the chief scout, we recruited Luka Modric, Dimitar Berbatov, Benoit Esu-Akoto, all who turned out to be very good Premier League players. So when we start...
You could say Lo Celso's a good footballer.
Well...
You could say Ndombele's a good footballer.
Yeah, and I will give you an excuse why that didn't work out as well.
This is
because they were signed for Maurizio Pochettino, who 4 months later was given his jotters. So he was given his P45. In fact, Ndombele could have signed for anyone in that 2019, and he chose to come to us because of Pochettino.
Well, let's look at some of these signings then. Let's have a look at some of these, and we can then have a bit more. So, okay, I'm only going from 2017 to 2020. So as you've already mentioned, Sean, 2005 to 2010, he was as a scout, ineffectively just a scout. So the list of transfers he's been involved in since February 2017, total of £111 million spent in 2017-18 season. Davinson Sanchez, Lucas Moura, Serge Aurier, Fernando Llorente, Juan Foyth, Paulo Gazzaniga. We famously then went on a no buying policy, didn't we, at Spurs? But then we went on to 1920 season, £150 million spent. Tanguy Ndombele, Steven Bergwijn, Ryan Sessegnon, Giovanni Lo Celso, which was part of a loan deal at the time, Jack Clark and Jedson Fernandez. More recently, Giovanni Lo Celso finished completing that purchase. Serge Reguilon, Matt Doherty, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Joe Rodon, Carlos Vinicius, Joe Hart, Gareth Bale, total of 96. So again, in total, £323 million spent. So again, when we talk about money not being spent at Spurs, I'm not quite sure that's quite the case, but we've done this and we've had about this talk sort of before. In terms of just looking at the incoming, Sid, how would you rate that from an out of 10? Just an out of 10 from the ins.
Right, listen, I'm looking at that 1920 and my eyes are just like, what? Did any one of them actually, apart from Bergwijn, actually perform? That window is 115 miles have just been wasted, mate, because
it's a horrible window.
It's a horrible window.
It's a horrible window.
Horrible window. That is like, wow. That is something that you take off your CV, wouldn't you? That window would just disappear because you ain't getting nothing from that window.
You wipe it from your CV, don't you?
You do. Wipe it from the face of the earth, mate. You just do whatever you need to do. Get rid of the black box, whatever color box it is. Just get rid of it.
As Sean did mention, so this is again going into that season of 1920. That was obviously the Champions League season being that one. Yeah. So we've seen. That Poch went after that pretty soon after that Champions League final, not too long into, I think it was November time. So a couple of them signings, as we talked about, the Ndombele one definitely was maybe more so bought for Poch. We all seen what's happened with Ndombele since then. Maybe he was too much of a Poch player that he couldn't live without Poch. I don't know. Just playing devil's again.
Nah, but right. So out of 10, oh my God, do you know what? I'm looking at the first window as well. Sanchez is 37 million. Wow. Lucas Moura is probably big. Moura probably. I mean, Aurier done well for us. Llorente was standing, weren't he? Overall, out of 10, I'm not going to go into it any further because I'm just going to get depressed and I'm just going to slag him off and I'm just going to Because I'm just looking at that. I need to take that screen off, man, because I'm just getting more and more
I
depressed.
want to ask the others the question as well. That's why I'm leaving it on. It's hard to read because when you look at it, we say, did this about the money. I get that. We haven't been wise. We haven't been lucky, and we probably haven't been wise in the transfer market. Hence the reason why PRTv has now come in to maybe correct some of these factors for the ins and out. But again, looking at just the hard facts of money spent in his 5 years, if he was allowed to go and scout, and if we have been allowed to say he spent this money, we all know he probably hasn't. We have spent 323 million pounds.
But listen, on a good day, and if I was in a generous mood, I'd give him a decent score. But any man that buys Lo Celso not once but twice, gets a 3 out of 10 for me. Because you got. Once is bad enough, but twice.
We didn't buy him twice, did we? We bought him from a loan, and then we made it a permanent. So it's not. But then, I get what you're saying.
It is.
And we made it permanent to save us some money.
Yeah.
It would have cost us more if we'd waited until the end of the season. So,
all right,
Sean. So what's your Sean? While Sid's doing some counting there, what do you think of this actual? 15, 16, amount of 20, money that's been spent? How would you suggest Steve Hitchen should be remembered? Is it fairly successful, average, mediocre, not so good, could do better? What's your thoughts?
Well, anyone can do better, but I would imagine if you put up any club spending over those 3 seasons, particularly at the other end of the Seven Sisters Road, you'd say, hold on a minute, that this is not as bad as them. So, I think I don't think you can underestimate the fact that both Hitchen and Pochettino wanted the club refreshed before it was refreshed. They did not choose those 500 odd days of not buying a player. They were pushing Levy to buy a player. Levy's head was somewhere else. And that's what's ultimately undone Hitchen, because we all think it was his fault that he sat on his backside because of a 30-second clip in an Amazon Prime documentary. Well, not even a 30-second. It's a meme, a picture of him with "I hate the January window." But if you read the whole quote,
it's a funny pic as well. He looks like Darth Vader or some form of dark Sith Lord.
But the thing is, it's undermined him in the eyes of Spurs fans. He hasn't been brilliant, but he hasn't been a duffer either, I would say, particularly when you take into the point when he was a scout under Kamoli. And as I've already said, the players he brought in, would you not say Dimitar Berbatov was a great acquisition? Would you not say Luka Modric was a good acquisition? They are legends of our club, Well, certainly Modric. But the thing is, he is getting maligned for things which were not under his control. In the end, Daniel Levy was more concerned about the building of the stadium than the building of the team. And you can see that in the demeanour of Pochettino as these empty windows went on. He became more and more agitated, and that Champions League final broke him. We still
spent.
And we spent a load of money in the summer when the man was done.
I struggle to give him any praise, because you look at this list here, it's just a pile of tripe. I mean,
20 players.
There's 20. Yeah, there is 20 players there, and it's a combined value of 323 million. Now, apart from, look at somebody. Look, you've got Jedson Fernandez, we've got Jack Clark, we've got. I've just saw another name there. It's just gone.
Sergio Reguilon, who's our first choice left back.
Yeah, there's about 3 players. There's 3, but you can't say Ryan Session's been a good buy for us because he's been injured 24/7.
Yeah, but is that Hitchen's fault that the player's injured? That's ridiculous.
That's it. This is where your chief scout should be doing his due diligence. If he hasn't done his due diligence, otherwise you can't just say, Session's come to Spurs and it's just been unlucky with injuries. There must be something there that must have been like, he's a good player, and then the
I
buts.
don't think a club's going to share its injury record with another club. Do you?
But you
Why
don't need
wouldn't
to
you?
share it. You don't
You
need
don't
to share it. You just
You
have
know
it.
you
If
saw
that,
it.
so I will jump on it because I've got to do this. Got to play the devil's advocate. Should that not be down to the medical staff then to maybe find out a little bit more about
Yeah, but
Ryan
surely,
Sessegnon?
surely you just look at Fulham or where he came from
Fulham,
in his previous seasons and just be like, how many games has he played for Fulham?
Yeah.
He was never present.
But
That
in
one season, yeah, just
one
before we
season
signed
he was
him.
ever present, and that
And
was
this is
when
where
we
it's
signed
difficult.
him.
This is, and I agree because if you look at it in cold hard facts, we say we bought a player like Ryan Sessegnon, he hasn't done anything. But as Sean's saying, it wasn't, Steve Hitchen that said, okay, I bought a player, he's a duffer here. Because obviously, if you knew that, I'm not quite sure would have gone down that route. So has there been a collective error collectively?
Well,
and are we making him the scapegoat? Should it be a collective
Absolutely.
decision? And also going forward, if that is the case and we're going to make him the scapegoat, are we going to do the same thing for Fabio Paratici?
But what's the main role of a chief scout?
Okay. Chief scout, go out and
That's
find
just
the
a
players.
general question.
However,
Exactly that.
if
So
that's
no,
his
the
role,
chief-
then
chief
he should.
scout
Let me just finish.
is
If
usually
that's his
under the
role,
director of
he
football.
then aligned to saying, right, I'm the chief scout. I'm now responsible for his medical record. I'm responsible for his payment. I'm responsible for his wages. That is somebody else's. That's what I'm saying. The broader your job title, the more responsibility you have. If you just pigeon him as a chief scout, he scouted the players. The rest of it could, not saying it would be, could be up to the rest of the other people within the club to make their decisions and get their jobs right as well. That's how I look at it from just a general business perspective, because I don't look at myself as being, right, I'm a project manager, but I'm going to look after all the accounts as well. I'm going to make sure that, we've got the nice new place to go and build a new shiny, we're going to share the responsibility. So I'm just saying, has he been given enough of that respect to say, right, he's brought in and done his job, but maybe we've given him a little bit too much more on top of it?
I think that Hitchen, first of all, he's going to have identified, or his team have going to identify players, and they will then bring them to the table and discuss them with Hitchen. Hitchen will then probably rattle through the list as to okay, let's go do a bit more research on him. Go out to the field and look at him in more detail. They come back, rattle through in a meeting. Rattle through the discussion, like the notes, etc., what their thoughts are, weaknesses, strengths, blah 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 blah. Then once they've got a short list, I would have thought the next stage of that will be, right, let's do the due diligence on him, injury records, medical records, etc., etc. But ultimately, I think Levy will be relying on Hitchen as to be like, right, and to a certain degree, Pochettino or whoever the manager was, and been like, right, is this the player for Spurs? If it is, I'm relying on you to tell me if that is the right player, and if it is, we'll go and make the purchase. That's I haven't got into in depth. There's no point, but that is something.
Do you not think the manager would have a say?
Well, you'd like to think so.
Well, this is what I was saying earlier. Hitchen and Pochettino were like that, and they would have made a joint decision.
Well, then you have to. Then, if we're thinking that, then you have to question Pochettino.
Yeah,
but in all fairness,
if you look at Paul Mitchell,
he's
go
a
back to
legend.
Mitchell
He's not
days.
allowed to be criticised, is he? And also, the fact is, for 2 windows, we bought nobody in spite of the coach asking for players.
Say that bit again. Sorry, I didn't catch that last bit.
For 2 windows, we didn't buy anyone, even though the coach was crying out for new players.
Well, that in itself, that in itself is a different topic altogether, isn't it? But if you're looking at that list, and if the
but it goes to a summation of what we think about Steve Hitchen. Steve Hitchen's making representations to Levy, saying, "Look, Maurizio wants players. We think we need players." And Daniel Levy say, "Well, I'm building a stadium, and I'm now going to build a cinema and a climbing wall and anything but that was in the original plans.
But we have spent money though. There's no denying we haven't spent the money.
We're too late.
That's again.
A couple of them players,
right? We made him a scapegoat, Sid.
Have we made him a scapegoat? I think In a way, I think so. Yeah, because look, if you look at a couple of them players,
Someone's
right,
got to be held accountable, haven't they?
Yes,
Yeah,
they
well,
do.
yeah.
But
So if
not
you
for everything. Not for everything. Because look, Sessegnon, he got him on the off that season. We got him. He had a blinder for Fulham, right? So potential there of somebody on the up and coming rising star who's gonna knock everyone for 6, right? But it's not worked out. Jack Clark was doing absolutely blistering at Leeds United. He's got him again, hoping a youngster is going to deliver at Spurs. But again, he's dwindled as well. So in terms of
started.
That's what I'm saying. So in terms of players, I think he's looked at potential players that could fit Spurs' way of playing. And also, if you look at Daniel Levy's head, Daniel Levy's probably thinking, you know what, they're both young. If they carry on playing the way they are, we could end up getting big money for them. Unfortunately, neither of them has worked out properly. So you can't really blame him for that. He's gone and got quality young players, but unfortunately Spurs just don't develop young players apart from the odd one or two. But the other ones, the likes of Jedson Fernandez, people like that. I mean, I think I read the other day it was a 46 or 40 something million pound obligation to buy or something if that loan period had finished.
Jedson Fernandez, that's what it is buying. He wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. So some of them loan deals that we've got, I think they've been a flop.
So is that not a good piece of business? Because this is just moving neatly on to. I want to continue on, but just putting in because there's always two sides to. Do you know what I mean? The transfers, it's ins and outs. So this is a list of players out since he joined 2017. And I'll just give a few figures in terms of the net spend as well. So Kyle Walker went out for 48 million roughly. Kevin Wimmer, well, I think we paid some. He wasn't even on the list. We paid some silly money for him and basically made about 16 million pounds on him, something ridiculous. Nabil Bentaleb went out. Clinton NG, remember that superb player. Federico Fazio, Vincent Janssen. So some of them players that were real dead woods that we had in here.
Yeah.
But I mean, Fazio? How was he even a footballer? I mean, he was terrible.
Tell you what, he was brilliant in Serie A.
He was.
Let me finish off. Let me finish off this list then. So Moussa Dembele, I think, was one of the biggest. I think his injury record, but it was one of the biggest mistakes. I think to let him go part way through that season. I think he went in the January window or something like that.
For that
Christian Eriksen, Kieran Trippier, Vincent Janssen again. He came out and went back in loan part. George Nkudu, Kyle Walker-Peters, another. I reckon we're going to look back at that and say that was a big mistake, but that was partly to get Pierre-Emile Højbjerg in there. So again, total money to come back into the club was 166.44 million. Net spend over the period that Steve Hitchen's been with the club was a net spend of 156 million pounds. Sean, how do you think he'll be remembered for his role? And do you see Paratici's role being a lot different, slightly different? How do you compare the two?
To be honest, his record will, it's been reduced to a meme. So it doesn't matter how much we want to judge him. I think, I'll look at it this way. Do we think Luis Suarez to Liverpool from Ajax was a good purchase?
Of course it was.
Well, who do you think did that scouting?
Yeah, and
Steve Hitchen. So he has got some talent. I think.
So what happened? Hold on, that passed me by. So what he did the scouting, but what?
And that's how he got. That's how Liverpool got him, because of his knowledge. We are undermining a player, a guy who has got a good record and will be signed up by some other club. But that's not to say he doesn't make mistakes. Hell, if we all didn't make mistakes, if I didn't make a mistake today, at my job, my boss wouldn't have been kicking my ass. But there you are.
He signed 20. He signed 20 players, and 17 were duds.
Absolutely. It's all opinions. Some people might say Clinton and G was a success. I don't know, but I don't think so.
I actually include.
Well, he also he helped build Potts a team that got us to a Champions League final.
Was that not Mitchell who did a lot of that scouting to get us to where we were?
and Mitchell will have had a part in that as well. Yes.
Me personally, it'd be interesting if we could have compared.
We would not have won the match in Amsterdam without Llorente.
I put Llorente as one of the successes that time because I actually thought he was a decent.
I thought you were rubbishing, Mike. So my apologies.
No. I rated Llorente. I didn't want him to leave. I would have kept him.
Yeah.
But it would have been interesting to compare Mitchell and Hitchens' purchases or recommendations, whatever you want to call it. It would have been interesting because I think I just struggle with. I know you could argue that we're using Hitchen as a scapegoat, but 20 players there, 300 what is it, near 330 million, whatever it is. I'd say maybe 17 is harsh, but I'd say at least 15 of them.
How do you see him? Apart from the meme, how do you see him being remembered? And is Paratici going to be looked at differently because of his role, or are we going to give him the same broad brush treatment that we've given?
I never answered you that, did I?
Oh, sorry about the second part. Sorry, go on then.
I
think Paratici will bring some kudos because of his links to Juventus, who are unfortunately a superpower in European football. I'm hoping, as I say, that the fact that he's been turning up at English league grounds shows that he's actually, casting his net more locally. I really hope that we do something about our academy, because I saw a young man playing for Southampton, developed by Chelsea's academy, bully one of our players last night, and I want our youth academy to have those sorts of players. I don't want to see us lose Dylan Markande for £500,000. So Paratici's got a job to do, a big job to do, both in the academy and in getting us decent players. And he's got to use the homegrown rule really well. But yeah, I think he has the record, certainly in Europe, to do that. So I think he'll be doing it in a slightly different way, yes, but he'll do it. I think he'll do us good, particularly with Conte in situ.
So, Mike, how do you see Hitchens', I guess, role? How do you see his tenure? How do you see his history at Spurs?
His history.
Legacy, in fact, if you want to use words like legacy.
Let's not use these words of Hitchen, because I totally disagree with that. But I think without battering him, I would say he's had a bog standard average tenure at Spurs. I'm going on those players. You could argue, yeah, maybe he's brought those players in and then the managers haven't got the best out of them. But we could say, well, the argument could be, well, Levy brought them in, but I don't think Levy would have done the scouting himself and arranged for those players to come in, etc. He would have just been like, right, are those players suitable? Yes or no? If yes, if they're at the right price, there's a rubber stamp, pay for it. How do I see his tenure? I'm just going to go, and I'm going to try and keep it as polite as possible. I think he's had an average time. I think any of us here could have scouted better players than.
Oh, Jesus, Mike, he's giving him a hard day. Jesus Christ.
I'm just saying that how I see it. I think I would love Paxton.
I think you're overestimating my abilities there, Mike.
Mike's talking us all up here. Jesus
there's
Christ.
no way any of us would have bought or recommended Jedson Fernandez.
Even though his mum and dad lived around the corner.
Even though his mum and dad lived around the corner, there's no way none of us would have recommended.
Thing is, though, as well, how many players?
Go on,
Sid.
No, I was going to say, the thing is, though, is how many players has he also scouted that Daniel Levy's turned around and said, no, you're not getting them?
Well, that's the thing. You'll never know that. So.
Yeah, and that was the other point to this. There might have been a lot of players that he might be suggested. Oh, this player's really good. Daniel Levy's gone around and said, no, I'm not buying him. We don't know. These are the things when you've got all these kind of like we have to make, and this is why it's just about opinions. It's what you see in terms of what we've seen as facts, I guess. And that's what I'm saying. Putting those things up, it might seem a little bit. Oh, we spent that much money in a lot of the duds, but there could have been a lot of things in there which we don't know. We don't know about the contract. We don't know how the deals were set. There's a lot of stuff we don't know. So when we just say Steve Hitchen, you was shit, I can see why, but I want to try and at least give him an opportunity, or at least give us the opportunity to look. Was he hampered in some way? Was there other aspects to it that it wasn't given the right, tools? Are we going to look at PRTv in the same way? Is PRTv's role bigger? Do you know what I mean? We have to look at all these things to kind of make a bit of an opinion, because we can't make too many more facts than what we've seen in terms of the spending.
The other thing is that 3 stints at Spurs, right? Now, only up until we got PRTv, and PRTv was doing his business just behind the dugouts, did we actually start seeing Hitchen. Prior to that, I don't think if you would have gone up to any Spurs fan and said Steve Hitchen, they would have said, who? What did he look like? I don't know. And it's only because, so why did it take him that long to actually start showing face and start doing what PRTv was doing? If you've been at that club, you know what I mean?
I'd hide if I brought some of those players in.
Yeah, no, but what? Mike's not having it. But what?
He's not having none of it tonight.
We didn't
I'd
see
change my name as well in public. No, I'm jesting there, but I mean, me personally, I'm touching on that what you've just said there very quickly, Sid. I don't want to see PRTv being vocal on the sidelines. Really, when I look back at it, and it's like it's cringy. I don't want to see the directors of football. I don't want to be seeing Levy sat next to Hitchen and sat next to PRTv, just behind Conte, shouting the odds, shouting at the players, telling them, no, you're not football. You're nothing to do with the football side of things.
Hold on, but that's a legacy of COVID, Mike. They're in a bubble and they have to stay in a certain.
But why do they need to be on the pitch?
He could have been upstairs. Daniel Levy was upstairs, so they could have gone up there.
Well, he's not in the bubble.
Them two are harsh, aren't they? Sid and Micah don't want anyone near him.
No, I'm not being harsh.
Hardly at the training ground nowadays, so that's why he doesn't go into the.
Call me old-fashioned. I just don't like. Why I don't want to see PRTv barking orders. Leave that to Conte. He's the expert.
Get rid of a world pandemic,
What's the pandemic got to do with PRTv sat behind Conte barking orders at the players?
Because he said the stadium is split up into red zones and white zones, and PRTv is in the red zone so he can talk to the players every day.
But why is he behind the dugout shouting instructions to the players when it's not his job? His job is to go and buy the players. Why are you shouting instructions? Okay, I can understand what you're saying, Sean, but what I'm saying is you're the director of football. You sit behind. That's fine. You're in the bubble. But don't start shouting instructions and all that just because you want to get the fans on your side or whatever. No, you stick to your job. Conte doesn't shout at, you know what I mean? Conte's job is to manage the team. No, but Conte's job is to manage the team. His job is to go and get the players. It's not his job to shout instructions, players run up and down the touchline, doing all sorts of stupidness.
Otherwise, why is PRTv not managing Tottenham Hotspur?
Exactly.
But, I mean, we're digressing slightly here. I mean, we're digressing. And it doesn't matter, as I say, with Hitchen being present, being sat behind the dugouts or not, that, as I say, I don't think that would determine whether his tenure has been successful or not. But I just don't. When you look at his record, at the end of the day, someone's got to be held accountable, haven't they? For the players that have come in, someone's got to be held accountable. There's going to be players that have come into Spurs that I would have thought Pochettino didn't want, or whoever it is didn't want, and they've had to make do. I'm surmising,
it's clear that Mourinho didn't want Bergwijn.
Yeah,
and I'm glad that we still got the player and not that fucking manager, by the way.
Well, this is the thing, though, isn't it? So,
I think we all agree on that one.
He's gone to fucking ruin my Italian club instead.
This is the thing, though, Sean. So how do we know Pochettino's wanted half the players that Hitchen's brought in? If we're going based on what you're saying, with Jose not wanting Bergwijn.
I don't think Pochettino would have allowed a player to come in that he didn't want.
What do you mean?
Why would Mourinho, who's a world-class manager, who's won everything in the game, do you know what I mean? So I don't get
video evidence. I've got
Yeah, the
video
problem-
evidence that says Mourinho didn't want Bergwijn.
The
We
problem
haven't
with
got
all
that
of this is a
Pochettino.
lot of it is our opinions. A lot of it is media speculation. A lot of it is
Course.
newspaper reporting.
Of course.
And we kind of have to make judgments. And I understand that. And this is what we do. This is what we do as fans. This is what we do as fan channels.
Yeah.
We take information from the media. We take information, I guess, from the club in terms of the sound bites that they put out. And you've got to look at the reasons why. Newspapers, media, they want to sell. The club, they want to be propaganda. They don't want to show things in a bad light. So we have to kind of decipher for ourselves what is actually going on here sometimes. When you look at the cold facts today, we spent a lot of money. Not all of it has been spent wisely, but no one can say that we ain't tried in the market. With Hitchen, for me, I'm going to look at him and think, yeah, did he get everything right? Was he in charge of everything? I'm not quite so sure. Do we blame him for everything? No. Did he have a difficult time because the managers coming and going? I guess yes. Was it a difficult time under Spurs? I guess yes, up until the Pochettino era, and we really started to get good up until 2019. And then, as we said, we didn't buy players. We didn't then buy players for a number of transfer windows after that. Is that Steve Hitchen's fault? I can't say it is, because he would have still been going out and saying, well, we've got this player for you, and I've got this player for you. We've got no money, or whatever the reason was. So it's a difficult one. We've done a lot on that bloody Hitchen thing. I don't think we're going to spend that long. Flipping hell.
Hitchen, isn't it? It's Hitch out, isn't it?
You know what it is? You just poke the fire and then you walk away and you just let it explode and then
Good grief. It's like Mike had a bloody notebook out when it started. He's like, well, listen to this. And he was going to go through some names here. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
In Hitchen's defence, there's a couple of players that he's bought that I think are good for the club, but yeah.
Right,
let's move on from this.
Let's touch on quickly, because this one is just a bit of a story that's kind of been developing. The Athletic recently put this out there. So again, we could probably have this story every week if we wanted to. But that's just with regards to the news that potentially Daniel Levy may be looking to sell Spurs. Again, reported in the Athletic sometime last week, suggesting that the club is being valued at somewhere around about the £3 billion mark, with 700 million of that being debt to the club. So the value of the assets 2.3. Let's just do this quickly, because it's something I guess is going to be a rumbling story. We're probably going to have lots more to talk about this in the future. But do you think there's some substance behind it? Do you really think Daniel Levy could sell? Sid, what's your thoughts?
not in my lifetime is he going to sell Spurs, mate. He ain't going to sell Spurs. You can have all these rumours and media speculating and whatever. Daniel Levy is not going to sell Spurs. He's a Spurs fan, and the amount of money he's making on other ventures and other bits and bats, he ain't going to sell that club. No way. And no one's going to pay $3 billion. Let me tell you that now, because I tell you what, if you're Man United, if you're Man City, and you've won trophies after trophies after trophies, after league titles and stuff like that, then you would contemplate buying a club like that. When you're looking at Spurs and you're thinking, what have you won? I think someone's put it on the group, 60 years since the Prem, 40 years for a European trophy, 30 years for an FA Cup. They ain't going to be interested. And hell, are they going to pay £3 billion? You're mad. And people
Why would they be interested? Why?
That's what I'm saying. They won't be interested.
Why?
Why wouldn't they, did you say?
No, why would they not? Yeah, why would they not be interested? Why wouldn't you buy Spurs?
Because £3 billion is a lot of money to pay for a club that's, if you look at the history, yes, we've got history, but...
Do you not think the infrastructure that Levy's put in place over the period of time will be an attractive investment for any buyer?
It'll be a business, not a football club.
Yeah, but football is a business now. It's not a sport as we all knew it back in the go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, even to the 90s. Once the Premier League came into place, football then turned into a business. The Premier League, that's when it turned into a business. The Spurs are a business first and foremost, and that's unfortunately the way the football world's gone.
Throw my little bit in the ring here. It does depend on how you look at it. Are you going? And I think these days, as Mike said, football I think is looked at as a business first. I don't know that many owners that come into the game now just saying, I want success. I guess you're going back to the what's his name from Blackburn who came in, who was local Jack
Walker.
Jack Walker.
Walker.
You know what I mean? Local guy, wanted Blackburn to do well, had a lot of money, decided to come in and throw it all out there to make them win. I guess Leeds were very similar as well. And if you look at Spurs, I guess we are a club that's had a lot of money thrown without the sort of, I guess, the success. Because Daniel Levy is looked at as being a Spurs fan. Anybody that comes in to buy Spurs now, unless they are actually a Spurs fan with money that they want to spend to see Spurs do well, are going to look at it from a business perspective. Is it an attractive business proposition? I guess you'd have to look at the numbers to know, but it looks as if it is because, you know, you've got the brand new stadium, you've got potential naming rights going on there, you've got all the assets in terms of the land, the revenue coming in from that, all the rest of it, housing, golf clubs, blah, blah, blah. So it is an attractive proposition. But like you were saying, Sid, have we got any success to kind of go with that like a Manchester United? I don't think we have. So we've got to have something else. What do you think would be the proposition for someone to want to buy Spurs then, Sean, apart from the lovely, shiny new state? Oh, he's gone. Oh, was it that bad a question? All right, then.
He's out of the house.
He said, I'm not having none of this, Sam. I'm not having none of this. I'm off. I'm off.
Mike, when he comes back on, you're going to have to say, I love Steve Hitchen. I love him. I love him. I love him.
All right, do you want to answer that whilst Sean might be contemplating whether he wants to come back or not?
Who's that to? Me?
No, go on then, Mike.
I don't think Levy and Lewis have any. Well, certainly Levy. Let's go with Levy first. I don't think Levy has any plans to sell his stake at Spurs. Joe Lewis, he's 84 years of age. So at some point, Tottenham have got to be thinking about how we future planning. What's going to happen if anything happens to Joe Lewis at 84 years of age? What does that mean for Tottenham? And there might be a case that Spurs and Joe Lewis might be thinking of an exit strategy. And if Spurs are looking to sell, I don't think it's looking to sell the club as a whole. I think it'd be potentially selling Spurs, like Joe Lewis's stake, because he's 84. He's not young, is he? He's an old chairman. He's an old owner, should I say? So he's going to be thinking about it. I would have thought it makes perfect sense from a business perspective. What's his exit strategy? So it might be that. I don't know. There's been a lot of rumors and a lot of noise with is it the Singaporean?
Yeah, Forrest. I think his name's Forrest
Lee.
Forrest Lee.
I saw at one point he was worth like 12 billion. I don't know, something to do with the stock market, seeing his values decrease slightly. But it might be that that Spurs are priming him to see if he'd be interested in buying a minority stake in Spurs. Which to me, if with Lewis's age and with Lee's wealth, that might be a perfect scenario for us because he is a wealthy person. And if you've got Levy, who still sees where the vision is for Tottenham, and if he concentrates on, I don't know, if it's if he leaves Conte and PRTv to deal with the pitch side, and then Levy and Lee deal with the off-field shenanigans, it might be a perfect sort of scenario there, and a win-win for us. But I can't see Spurs selling the whole club. Not when I think we're still on a part of a journey, aren't we? Levy still sees us on a journey with America and NFL, and like what was in the news the other day about buying up a building and turning it into a cinema, hotel, whatever it is. I can't see Spurs selling, not the club as a whole. As I say, minority stake, I can see that. It makes perfect sense. And Tottenham do need the investment, right? We still got the naming rights to sell. So I can see investment into the club, but yeah.
Sid, do you see it as being more major investment as opposed to Levy, Daniel? I keep saying Daniel Lewis. Joe Lewis. Do you see them selling parts of Spurs off as opposed to this whole, here we go, it's worth 3 billion. How's your father? Give me that. Yeah, job's good. What do you see?
I think I agree with Mike saying. I think if if there was anyone to sell, I think Joe Lewis would be the one to sell his stake of the club. Whether it be rare, medium, or well done, I don't know, but he'd probably sell that one. And then I think what would happen is if he sold his stake of the company, or Daniel Levy would buy more of that of his share, so he has more gain and more control of the club, and then the rest, like Mike said, minority would probably be given to whoever else needs to be given it to. But I can't see, out of the two, I can't see Daniel Levy leaving that club at all. However he has whatever type of control and what he does in the background, he'll still be there. And what Mike was saying is, 100%, if you let Conte and Paratici deal with the footballing side of it, let Daniel Levy deal with the business side of it, the hotels, the cinemas, and just generating the money to come in through other events and stuff like that, then it could work. As long as somebody with loads of dosh comes in and is willing to pay for players and stuff, and they don't have to deal with Daniel Levy. So if we want 75 million for a player, Paratici says, yeah, I want that player, then that 75 million, there you go and buy him. You know,
Sure,
but
Sid's doing monopoly money here. Sid's living on monopoly money right here.
It's, it is.
I understand. We want to see. I guess we want to. This is why it's probably a bigger talk, and at the moment, because it's just kind of like that little bit of that sort of like thrown out there. It might need to be something once we get a little bit more concrete evidence that it might be a reality. Then we should do a little bit further. But Sean, just in terms of the whole selling, I know you're quite strong on your thoughts about Daniel Levy, the board, etc. What's your actual thoughts behind the potential sale? Do you think it's something that they would consider, or like the others have said, maybe more of a major investment, minor investment, minimum, whatever? What's your thoughts on the whole selling thing?
I think the whole thrust of that, the Athletic article that I think I shared with everyone on the group, was that Spurs are more up for sale now than they have been at any time. But I think, as Mike has said, I think it's probably a part sale. I think it's part of it is linked to Lewis's age. He's and obviously his inheritance is going to go down to his children. I don't know how many children he's got. Levy, as I understand it, only has a 27% stake in the club.
Yeah.
So the vast majority is still held by Lewis. So I would imagine that maybe that they were rumored to have been meeting in the Bahamas there when the transfer window was on, and that maybe Daniel was going to say, "Well, Uncle Joe, am I in your will? Do I get to keep the club?" I think
he's only got two children, Lewis.
Yeah.
Has he? Yeah.
A boy and a girl.
I wish I was one of them, but I'm not.
Same here. I'd take the money.
Anyway, who knows what the inheritance route is for the shares of ENIC, and who will take them. But I do believe that any deal for Spurs will require signing off that Daniel Levy remains chief executive for at least 5, 10, 15, 25 years. I think it will. He say what we like about him, and I feel that he's been more of a drag than a drag on the football team than I would really want. I think he's going to be around for a while.
Why would he? Like you said, I'm only playing it from a devil's advocate, looking at it from a perspective of someone who's owning something that's making money. Yes, we have to separate the success on the pitch from the success off the pitch. Some would say that we haven't had much success off the pitch. If you look at it from a cold-hearted point of view, I think we have. There's lots of improvements. We've got a brand new shining stadium. It's what happens after. Are we now focused on that just becoming a money-making machine? There's talks about NFL in the future in terms of, the Super Bowl. We already know about the NFL here now. We've talked about major events, boxing, etc., concerts. So we know that business side of things has a good success route, has a profit route as well. But that might come at the detriment of actual success on the pitch. and you might have to look up the road to see the outcome of that. You know, their owner is calm. They're making a lot of money every time they bring out a new training kit. It's being sold. They just got to pump it out there. Although the majority of people are moaning about their owners, the owners aren't too keen to sell. Why? They're making a lot of money from Arsenal. We don't want to fall into that trap, and I guess we might have to open this debate out a little bit more when, you know, there's more sort of things.
The new TV deal was announced today, and for the first time, international sales have outsold domestic sales. So I mean, it's a cash
brand,
cow,
isn't it?
It's a cash cow,
and that's what I think. The idea behind it all is, I believe, well, I hope, is that Spurs become self-sufficient, and we haven't got to rely on the owners pumping money into us, because it's not going to happen. But if the club's self-sufficient through the like you say, Sean, Spurs being a cash cow, money coming in, then hopefully, I suppose the perfect scenario would be that Spurs see the fruits of that labour, and it comes in with Spurs being able to afford to buy and attract better players at higher transfer values. I'm assuming whether that happens is it's the $1 million question, and remains to be seen. It hasn't. You could argue it hasn't happened as such so far, but and that's where I think the difference between us and with Arsenal. I think Arsenal, when you look at their sort of infrastructure, their infrastructure is nowhere near what ours is at the present and what ours could be in the future. And they're relying on their owners to still be pumping money in. But yeah, it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen, doesn't it? I mean, I think Levy will be here for at least the next 5 years.
Wouldn't. If I was him, I wouldn't sell. I don't know why people can put all this pressure on him. If it was me and it was my club and I've got this in, why would I? You know what I mean? Exactly. If I genuinely am a fan, which some people are debating whether he's a fan of Spurs or not, but he's grown up in and around, the area. So I would imagine that, he genuinely has some love. But if you're making money from it, you love what you're doing, you actually love the club. There's no reason to. So I don't see him being forced.
He's looking at the Super Bowl as well now, isn't he? Apparently he wants to host the Super Bowl at the stadium.
Oh my God, that would be enormous.
Yeah, and guess who they got to perform at halftime?
Sid, they'll have you.
No, me and the Spurs team as well.
Oh
yeah, but you can see it though.
Do that, yeah.
You can see the vision, and I don't put it past us with everything that Levy is setting out for us to do. I think he will achieve it. I think we will host the Super Bowl. I think we will. I think we will have an NFL. I think we will have an NFL team based at North London at Tottenham's. I know we bought the golf course, which is being turned into an NFL training centre. So you can see it. I think it will happen. But what we want as fans is to see that money that's coming in being spent on the players, the personnel.
Players in white shirts, blue shorts, and whatever colour socks.
White socks, blue socks, depending on their mood, isn't it?
That's where we want the money spent.
Yeah,
there's all 100%. This income.
But for that to come in, Spurs need to build that brand, don't they? They need to build the infrastructure, which is what Levy's doing. I know we all criticise Levy and moan at him because we're not spending here, there, and everywhere, but if we do become self-sufficient and that money does start pouring in like he believes it will, then when that money does come in and he's not spending on the players, then well,
that's how we'll judge him, isn't it?
Loud questions will be asked. I'm sure of it.
I think the
longer it goes without shiny trophies at the end of the season, the more the tide will turn against him.
But then the pressure comes, doesn't it? And then you've got the pressure on the players coming in, the pressure on the manager to deliver. Then it becomes a job whereby, actually, you're giving me 20 million a year. Do I want that hassle? Do I need that hassle? I'll take 5 million less and go to a rival or a club that's not going to have that sort of pressure. So
it's a complicated.
It's a complicated one because you don't want what player's going to want to come into an atmosphere whereby there's hostility. The fans.
There's a lot of players want to go to Real Madrid
and Barcelona, and look at all the turmoil that's going on in both those clubs. Do you know what I'm saying?
but Real Madrid and Barcelona, I know there's some sort of they're in financial difficulty at the moment. But you see Real Madrid, that stadium that they're building,
Yeah.
and they've got the history whereby if you're going to sign I don't know, say you're going to sign a 5-year deal with Real Madrid, you're going to be like, well, on the balance of probability, apart from Barcelona, we've got a very good chance of winning, and Atletico Madrid, but we've got a very good chance of winning silverware.
I'm not so silly to think that football doesn't have corruption, and where money's involved, corruption's involved. So again, when you've got the scale of money that's involved in clubs, involved in naming rights, involved with TV revenue, etc., there is going to be a degree of and that's a bigger debate to be had about
golden handshakes.
Football. You know what I'm saying? Football in general, and that sort of side of things. But we've done all right with this bit. Just a final thing then. This is what I want.
Oh no. What's he doing?
This is the one. I wanted to come back to this.
Thanks, Mongo.
I saw that bloody thing.
I saw it and I was trying my best. I giggled and I went over it, but I had to come back. Sean, you saw it as well because I saw your face giggling as well. So sorry, Sean, but you remind me of Bert from the Muppets with your new hair. I told you should have gone for Sid and me and Sid, but you didn't want to do it. You decided to go for the old Bert. So that's what you've got now. You've got the old Bert on you.
Yeah. Well, I've been called a Muppet on more than one occasion.
I've been called that a few times.
When you get called when you get to 60 and you support Spurs, it's into the territory, mate.
So now you know why they call you a Muppet, because of your haircut.
The Muppets was a very educated program, probably done more for literacy in America than any government that they've ever had. So I'm quite happy for that.
We need to get off that political debate as well, because I agree with you on that one. The way that they do the Sesame Streets over there, it's like grown people watch that sort of thing.
Because they have to, because their education system's so shit.
Anyway, guys, that's been good. We at least we've avoided the old Southampton. We've done well tonight. We've avoided that. We've got another game to look forward to. But before we go,
Southampton?
Yeah, look, what was that yesterday? Something like that. Anyway, make sure you hit that like button if you're watching. Make sure you subscribe to Paxton Road TV. Do you like my new backdrop as well? The old green screen. Look at that. I'm loving that. Look at my smile on my face because of the old backdrop. Look at that. Look at that one. Say I'm gonna do that. I had to do that before I go. I'm proud of myself for that one. I am proud of myself. So you might see a little bit more the old creativity coming from the old Sam Spurs for life. I'm gonna big myself up. Anyway, thank you very much, Mike. Thank you very much, Sid. Thank you very much, Sean. We've got plenty to go for the weekend. Mojo said well, Sean, I'm 60. Well said, Sean. I'm 63. My hair's mainly on the sides now, mate. Great show, lads. That's from Mojo. So it's good to see we're all having a laugh here. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah.
Therapy.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. Right, let's go see the second half of these games. Mike, Sean, and Sid. Well done, gentlemen. Come on, you Spurs.